So, Gavin, welcome back to the Razor's Edge. We've spoke to you for a couple of times over the past few months, but I think today we're going to talk more about Damnation because it's just around the corner and what the last 12 months has had in store for you.
Well, forget the last 12 months. What about the last 12 days?
I mean, that was 12 days, definitely.
That was. I don't want to jump 15 of your questions, but that was a bit mad. The whole ministry situation. So that's kind of what I'm just coming out the other side of at the moment. And anybody who doesn't know is ministry basically pulled their entire European tour because they lost a Belgian date, a Belgian festival, and decided that they weren't going to do the rest of the tour, which meant we lost our date too. And then we went into a wee bit of panic mode for 48 hours and came up with some special sets, which I'm sure you're going to ask me about. But it was a wild day. It was a wild like last couple of weeks. And as to answer your question properly, the last 12 months it's been great. It's like a lot of things when you were getting yourself into, a lot of the extras, to put that in some sort of tangible sense for people, like ordering portaloos and fencing and dealing much more on a production scale. I mean, we did bring stages and lights and sound systems into the rooms and two of the rooms in Leeds as well. But in an arena, it's just in such a more grand scale. And we're still tackling some of that stuff here. We are 5 weeks out, but it's been great. Ticket sales been great, and the lineup's pretty spectacular. So can't really ask for much more than that.
Brilliant. So let's start off. I want to touch on last year's. You knew going into it was going to be the final time at Leeds. It's a venue that really saw Damnation flourish over those 10 plus years, where there was much more people attending. How was the final event for you and Paul? And how did you feel actually closing the doors on it one last time?
It was so many mixed emotions about that day because of the pandemic, not because of necessarily it being Leeds, although there was a lot of emotions about that too. But I don't know if we'll ever recapture the atmosphere that was at Damnation 2021. I'm getting my years mixed up. So 2021, because everything just felt like champagne corks going off. And it just felt like every band was having that. We're back. There's so many of the bands that were on that bill that day. That was our first show back in 2 years, 2.5 years sometimes with them. Like a Carcass, for example, hadn't played in forever. Never mind some of the bands lower on the bill. So the artists were nervous, more nervous than they would normally be. They were more pent up. It was a real chance for them to finally get back to what they love doing. It was a chance for us as fans. A lot of people hadn't been to a gig before Damnation. A lot of people come in with, again, still nervousness about the pandemic, but then also the excitement about being back. And that again, I think both those things together, and has been robbed it for that couple of years. It was just such a special, happy, excitable atmosphere. And I think the band's fed off that. When you're looking at Party Cannon and Conjurer and Boss Sketch, like, it was the best I'd ever seen those bands. And I just felt like everybody was really buzzing off each other's energy. So, yes, that was spectacular to be part of, to be proud of the fact we'd hosted it. And then there was that bittersweet, such a great experience, and always was at Leeds, but we're leaving it behind. And some of the realistic reasons for that, like when I'm watching, 200 people queuing outside the ISO stage to get to see June, and that stage takes the best part of 1,000 people, you're like, this is exactly why it needs to move. I mean, no disrespect to a band like June, but their show before Damnation and after Damnation never had 1,000 plus people queuing to get here. Yet at Damnation, all these bands are getting capacity rooms, and we've seen it yourself in the years. After it, well, I mean, a couple of people just basically said they wouldn't go back to that another Damnation because the lineup's not what you're getting. Like, you're looking at the lineup and say, I want to see Abduction and I want to see Party Cannon, I want to see June and Boss Kelloyd, and then when you're getting there, unless you're running into the room before the start, you might catch two of those bands.
Yeah, it's quite difficult, but I think you're right. As a punter's point of view there, from the minute you open the doors for the Night of Salvation, everybody was just really excited to be there and looking forward to what was going to happen over 2 days.
Yeah. I mean, the Night of Salvation was so much fun as well.
It was brilliant, yeah. We won't go there.
It's 4 bands as well. I mean, 4 bands and quite friendly bands that we know. So there was that pressure of what you get in a Damnation. Especially with, like, you've got a band like Opeth or Mayhem, there's no friendship there as such. It's just a business transaction of you booking them come in, playing your set and going. It can be quite not daunting, but it's definitely a more professional setting in terms of having to be on point than it was when Raging Speedhorn show up after 20 grand worth of cocktails at TGI Fridays and throw a party, you know what I mean? So it was that was the Net of Salvation was that whole other than the queuing, which we already knew going into that year, I can't think of any downsides to 2021. Was just remember coming out the other side and talking to Paul and just being like, God, that was so good. I could get back into and I'd do it again tomorrow. You know what I mean? Well, usually there's a wee bit of burnout after it.
Definitely. And it got the 40 something year olds like us crowd surfing, so it couldn't have been all bad, could it?
Yeah, well, listen,
talk about that, yeah.
Well, we'll get you going over the barrier multiple times, and you get. I mean, to sum up the Night of Salvation, I was told off by our security. I was paying those guys to be there. They were catching me and basically telling me I was getting kicked out my own show. So it was it got a wee bit wild, but then that's why we do it, isn't it? That's why we're sitting there having chats like this, because we love it.
Absolutely. So we touched on ministry earlier. Obviously, that's been a bit of a bump along the way, but you guys have handled that, and you've swum through that. What other challenges have you faced with it going to Manchester and much more bigger capacity?
No, I mean, your first challenge is the most basic one: selling the tickets. Now, the BEC Arena can take 6,000. We're not going to go to 6,000 this year because I feel it would just be greed. And the chances are going there and then getting caught out with some daft things that you could probably have. You wouldn't need to let to get to that stage. Now, we might not have sold 6,000 anyway, but if we were going to that, I don't think we need to squeeze that sort of last 500 tickets out the venue just to trip ourselves up when there's not enough food or the toilet queues are horrendous or suddenly can't get into arena free, which was exactly the reason we left Leeds for. I mean, I said to this privately to Paul. In fact, I might actually said in the podcast that when we've done that one together, if you offered me right now that Damnation made zero money this November, but every single person that came had the festival of their lives, I'd rip your hand off for that swap deal, because that's exactly what this year needs. It needs to be special because the profit will come down the other years. If everyone comes this year and feels looked after and feels that this venue suits Damnation, we can bring that atmosphere that we had in a smaller venue into an arena venue, which Outbreak apparently managed. I wasn't there for Outbreak, but apparently did a fantastic atmosphere there in the same venue. Then I'd rip your arm off it, because that's obviously the fears we've got as well. It's the unknown of these rooms and exactly how they'll be, how they'll sound, how they'll look, and that's the biggest challenge, getting those sales which we've now got. And then there's the silly stuff that's happened this year, like the band cancellations, which we've been doing this since 2005, and I've never seen so many nondescript, wishy-washy cancellations. It almost seems like from nothing. I mean, I completely forgot that we lost that band Brand of Sacrifice, and that was another one. It was just like they were on the poster, and then 10 minutes later they were off the poster. It was like, oh, you can have Oceano instead. It was like, well, what happened there? You know what I mean? That's destruction, toxic holocaust, fucking ministry. It was like, I don't know if we could muster a full proper excuse between all four bands. So that's and I've seen it everywhere. Up Tangent had a raft of cancellations, Bloodstock had been pulling out. We get it. It's not easy, especially coming out of the pandemic. But I feel like if something's not just 100% right for bands, whereas before they would have felt it was a bit of a PR disaster, there's a bit of that whole holy trinity of the pandemic, the war in Ukraine, and the cost of living. It's just like, right, okay, that works for us, or we kick in. And people are a bit more accepting of cancellations now than they would have been previously.
Yeah, I agree.
We get so used to it. We get so used to everything just getting cancelled for 2 years solidly, and watching tours getting booked and rebooked. And I think now, in 2018, getting into 2019, you cancel a tour, fans will demand an explanation. You know what I mean? Whereas now it's just like, it's a tough world out there, which I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying, like, if you're going to cancel, give some. Let's have some decent reasons behind it. You know what I mean? I think Ministry have only just told fans today that tour that was pulled a month ago is no longer happening. I mean, it's like, yeah, we can do better than that, surely.
Yeah, we can, because obviously everyone's vying for everybody's money, and you need to treat it as such. You need to be honest, I think, with the fans, because honesty gets you everywhere, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's turned into Damnation's weird little superpower. which is odd because it doesn't take any effort at all. You know what I mean? So, I mean, you're transparent to a point. I mean, you're not going to be talk about bands' fees and terms and conditions and contracts, but I think there's a level of honesty you can still achieve and remain professional. And I think because we're willing to maybe be a bit more open about what's happening, especially when we feel the fans deserve it.
Yeah,
it's turned into this whole sort of. I see that seems to be the biggest compliment we get as an organisation, as a music business promoters, is that we're upfront and transparent about it. As I say, that's not a difficult thing to be.
No, definitely not. I agree. So when I saw you in Glasgow, you were talking things like you said earlier, portaloos, food vendors, etc. You've got a brewery doing the Damnation IPA. How much extra time have you guys had to put in to get those elements together? Because you've never had to really consider them much before, have you?
No, because and also because that's just the reality. So I was a newspaper editor for the last 5 years, been a journalist for the last 20 years, which you clearly know for it, but friend, they're listening to this interview. So that's 40 plus hours a week, and a good week that's just not Damnation. I mean, it's your career, and it's quite a demanding career, and you're just. I've got 3 kids as well, so you're finishing, and there's only, with the best will in the world, there's only so many times you can say to my wife, oh, by the way, I'm duking up into the office for another 3 hours at night. Can you look after our 3 children and make sure they've got stuff ready for dinners and school next day? And for that to be realistic, to be any sort of marriage that's worthwhile. So yeah, I was squeezing Damnation into the spare time I could get. I was squeezing in at weekends. I was trying to nab time at lunch breaks. That kind of jazz, and ultimately that was fine at Leeds because it worked at Leeds, and we did pretty much what I felt was needed. We'd done the basics right, we'd done the important stuff right, and we never had any of the frills, as you're saying, a Damnation IPA. There was no time to pursue that avenue, to go and find the time to have those meetings and phone calls and Zoom chats. So I gave up my job to do Damnation full time, and here we are. The best example for people who really know are on the Damnation Festival forum on Facebook is the Star Wars bar. Star Wars bar is the difference between me not doing journalism and what would be. There's no way in the world that that would ever have been done. That I would have found the time with Paul and Brian to set up the ticketing for it, to set up the graphics for it, find the time to promote it. Now, I wasn't expecting it to sell it in 3 hours, but if it hadn't, I certainly wouldn't have had the time when I was still doing journalism to be doing all the other stuff I'm doing for production and spend several hours on the Star Wars bar. So that's the small things, and I can only see, because I've only been out of journalism now for 4 weeks, but that's the small things I can see already right now. And I'll be right. There's merchandise to come. There is more merchandise now than there's ever been, because we've brought on a partner with Pins and Knuckles. So finally you'll get tote bags and beanies and stuff like that. Again, it's not that I never knew that could happen. It's like I just never had time to give it any headspace. It was a bit like, get a couple of t-shirts and a hoodie out, because that's the time we can afford to do that. So there'll be across the board with everything. I believe I'll just look better. There'll be more time given to it, and ultimately, as long as the fans continue to back us the way they have in the arena, I can make up my salary and Damnation and no go crawling back to reach PLC in a year's time and beg for a job, as a junior reporter somewhere. So.
But that's a common misconception, I think, with anybody involved in music, that everybody's got this infinite time to run things, whether it be a festival, whether it be a web zine, and I think people think that you just magic this time to make things happen. So it's refreshing when people talk about it honestly and say, well, actually, I've got children, I've got a career, I've got a life outside of that. Yeah.
Of course. And it's weird because I'm in a fairly unique position. There's not very many people. I mean, there's a lot of promoters in the world, and there's a lot of festival promoters in the world. A lot of big ones work for big companies, and even if you're independent, it tends to be in conjunction with either backers, sponsors, or a group. Even if it's your friends, like Art Tangent and 2000 Trees, 2 festivals I'm very close with. Now, they're both with multiple organisers, so Damnation's a bit weird that it's mine. I mean, I organise it with Paul and Bryce, our graphic design guy, but it's all mine. I mean, I own it. So it's when you're taking that jump and saying, right, okay, maybe if we had 3 or 4 organisers involved in this financially, giving up your career really isn't an option because there's not 4 salaries in it or even 3 salaries in it. I mean, that push of itself would make it 2, but for me to go and say, okay, we just need to get to this point, and I don't need to make the money I made in journalism. I just need to. I love that job, but I love this job more, and now I want to see what we can do with it. So. But I suppose there you go. That's me being honest again. That's what I do. My superpower.
Very grassroots, though, and I think that's why fans keep going, because it is a grassroots festival. It started as grassroots, 15, 16, 17 years ago? A little bit longer, 18?
Well, I was 23 when I started it, so
this was 17.
I'm 40 now, so 17 years.
And it started grassroots, and I think that's what keeps fans coming, because I think they do appreciate that hard work that's put in to bring it up and have that lineup every year.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and also, I think ultimately, a stranger can come out of the woodwork tomorrow, and as long as they put on an absolutely spectacular bill, fans will turn up for it as well. I mean, it's a nice bonus that Damnation's got, that myself and Paul are accessible, and we are on that page, and we are answering questions right down to the humdrum, to the exciting. But ultimately, people don't know sometimes who the promoter is putting on any given show, whatever, and they'll still go if the lineup's good. So that is the be all and end all. I mean, despite all the Damnation support, we put a really terrible lineup next year. I promise you, there won't be 6,000 people in that venue. So I appreciate it as much, but we understand that's only one small component of making Damnation work.
Yeah. So ticket sales this year. So you mentioned to me at Bloodstock that you've sold more tickets. So where are we at this point, ticket wise? Can you say?
We're about 5,000. We're about that 5,000 mark at the minute. As I say, don't want to go to 6,000. I mean, if we could get to 5.5, I don't think I'd sell more than 5.5. So that would give us about 500 to go, which is not a lot really, only at 5 weeks out. So I mean, I would expect a sellout by the end. The only caveat to that was we did do that big flurry for the £65 ticket before it went to 70. So we did see a wee spike in tickets there over that sort of 200 to 300 in the last week or so, that people knew about the change to the lineup when it was sets, which was interesting itself. And then you had an opportunity to save your £5 plus booking fee just the last day of September, I think, maybe on Saturday. So there might, I'm not quite sure now. I mean, I was expecting quite a slow trickle these few days, so it really depends whether that picks up towards the end of the year. But we're safe. We're safe now anyway. It's all good. So the rest is all gravy. So if it does get to that magic mark, then great. I'd love it. But ultimately, it's no make or break for Damnation anymore. That was about 1,000 to 1,500 tickets ago.
That's brilliant, because there's been a bit of a hot topic on the forum about the favourite years at the moment. Yeah. And I know 2009, both our favourite years. And I remember having a conversation with you at Bloodstock 2010 and you saying, I can't book them again. I nearly lost my house. You'd had a few drinks, to be fair. And I mean, that is the pressure you were under though then, wasn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and I suppose like sometimes you have these chats and talk about 2009. It's like, oh, look at all the lessons I learned. I mean, that'll never happen again. But that could be 2023. I mean, that could be, you go there and you take a punt in a band or two, or for whatever reasons you go up against a couple of super tours that are more popular, or for whatever reason something just doesn't click. I mean, as we said, that discussion about that lineup. So if you're talking about Life, Agony, Therapy, Lock Up, Destruction, Electric Wizard, Anathema, Yezu, This Will Destroy You, Rotten Christ. I mean, that lineup now would do serious numbers for Damnation. Serious numbers for Damnation. So who knows? Who knows what it was about that particular lineup that just never clicked with the fans? Why we never struck the chord the way that it has before that? Because the Carcass year the year before was absolutely packed. To be fair, 2010 was busy for, but it was a smaller festival in the smaller room. So it did take us a few years to sort of rebuild. I don't know why we lost that momentum. But it's not that in a lot of ways that's good, because I learned within 4 years of doing it that you can work a full year and lose thousands, you know what I mean? So it makes you realistic. A lot of people get into this game and just like, we'll book that band and 5,000 people come tomorrow. And maybe, I don't think I was that naive, but there was definitely a part of me when everything's going right, Damnation 2005 to 2008, everything's going right, we're either selling out or there or thereabouts. and everything we touched seemed to turn to gold. And then 2009 clearly showed you that, but that's just no, that streak has ended, and then we sort of rebuilt it. And then I feel for sort of 2016 onwards as well, and Damnation's really taking big strides. I mean, like we were starting to sell out in advance and get those big bands, and getting like a band like Opeth would never have considered Damnation 5 years beforehand, and you're a bit like, well, nothing changed really in terms of venues. Damnation is a much bigger event on the international scene now. So
Definitely.
I'm excited to see, because we've got that option now to really go genuinely big with a band if it's there in the arena, or like the way I prefer to do it is just spread that budget right to the bottom, and you've got people just like I like 19 of those 24 bands I'll go and see if they're on tour.
And I think also it's seen in the calendar as the last thing of the year by a lot of fans, isn't it? They've done the summer festivals. You know, it's a bit cold. We're going to go inside now, and we're going to have a big choice because there's still the same amount of fans as there would be at an outdoor festival, and the same amount of bands. That's what I meant. Same amount of bands, and you can pick and choose.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big set. I mean, that's what I feel. I feel like it's got that, and that was not by design. That's my big mistake. I think at the very start in my head, I was like, well, just don't go into that feeding frenzy of the July, August, where you've just you're basically asking somebody to choose us or your Bloodstock or your Download, or if you go to Leeds and Reading Festival, whatever. I used to go to a lot of those festivals myself. So I was, in my head, I didn't want it to be anywhere near that. I don't, for whatever reason, it wasn't at the start of the year. So it was October to start, then we kind of slipped into the start of November. It just seems to work. It seems to work for us. There's a downside to it. We miss out on all we'll never been part, and probably will never be part of the whole end of year awards. The kind of the deadlines for a lot of the best festival of the year kind of are before Damnation even takes place. So there's bits we've never really been part of that scene and never been recognised that way. But ultimately, that's a small price to pay for not being slap bang in the middle of that. Well, the same reason when I went to London, just at the time Damnation was so small when it started, just you get swallowed up with a city like London. Whereas now Damnation could definitely hold its own in a city like London, but again, it's no special as it is for every fan outside London. It's sick fed up of every tour and big show happening there.
Definitely. And I think the North, Midlands and North, have really embraced it as it's ours. You know, it's for us. London has everything. This is ours. And if you want to come, great, but don't say anything about it or we're going to have you, you know? It's a bit like that, isn't it?
It turns out you say that to each other. I mean, you try to Manchester, the Leeds, and people are trying. I mean, as I say, as a Glaswegian, I never knew anything about that rivalry. I didn't know that was a thing, Leeds and Manchester. So
me neither. No. Yeah,
that was a wee bit of a surprise. I mean, I suppose there is a wee bit of joke rivalry between Glasgow and Edinburgh, but ultimately a festival I love was here get shifted to Edinburgh. I could live with it. I mean, it's 45 minutes or to an hour along the motorway. It's not going to London. You know what I mean? It's another flight away, and a huge city that swallows everything.
Last year, you talked about maybe putting a tent stage outside as an option. Do you think that would still work potentially?
I think so. Like, it's a bit of a running joke with some people at Damnation how much time they spend outside, like at the terrace or the smoking areas. A lot of people use Damnation as well. This is no compliment to us, is to meet their friends. It's the festival they go to, they see their friends for the first time. It might be for different parts of the country, and that's the highlight of their day. The Damnation's lineup's fun, but nothing's as much fun as pints with your pals. So, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of people that say, I was so excited about this lineup, but let's be honest, the clashes we all moan about, we end up sitting on the terrace getting hammered with our best mates. So it's always been part of the community sort of feel of Damnation, and I think we've got quite lucky with weather, and especially in Leeds, it was never freezing. It was always brisk, you know what I mean? Maybe I was feeling that as a Scottish guy coming down. I never felt that Damnation was ever that freezing. And if that's
one year was snowing, I remember when it was Halloween. Was it?
Oh, is it?
All right. Yeah, it was snowing. It was bloody awful. We were staying in some really bizarre Bates hotel where we thought we were going to be murdered in the night. So
listen, there's some choice places to stay in Leeds, and I think I've been in most of them myself.
Yeah.
So I mean, I feel not an outdoor stage without covering, but you put something up with 3/4 in the side, and you get 800 to 1,000 people go in there to watch some decent bands.
Yeah.
I think I'd heat up quite well. I don't think it would be that cold. I mean, I'm willing to learn the lesson, get it done, and then it's clearly an absolute nightmare. But we have the merch tent this year is outside, so we'll get a big ass gazebo to take, because there's just, again, it sounds strange. We move into the arena and you think they've got a space, but actually when it came to it, the merch could only really go right slap bang in the middle of a main arena where bands playing in darkness, you know what I mean? So it kind of became, right, okay, let's not do that. Let's try and get it outside and then use the main arena for what it's supposed to be used for. And we've got that. We're going to have a lot of food traders at the minute, because Damnation, despite doing well ticket-wise, the cost of everything involved are just astronomical. I mean, every time you speak to him about a tent, he goes, oh, how much? For $3,000 for you to get a tent, you know what I mean? What is it for a platform, for an accessible platform in the room 3? That's another grand plus VAT, and then you want one in room 2, a grand plus VAT, and then you want one in out. So there's wee things that just keep creeping up this. We're a bit like, Jesus, we've had this in Leeds, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
there's the idea at the minute is definitely the merch tent needs to happen, because we kind of risk people being outside of our merchandise and it raining. But so that needs to happen and will happen. And the second one is try to maybe get a big ass gazebo one for tables to win for people to sit and eat at the food vendors. But again, we'll see. As I say, it's some of the stuff, it's a bit like that's going to happen for 2022, and we might get into it for 2023. And some of it's we'll see if we can make it happen for this year. But you kind of just, if you get a Willy Wonka's like dream fantasy list, everything you want to get done, and even with the spare time and the good ticket sales, it's not everything's possible in year one.
And it's logistics of it all as well, isn't it? And making sure those vendors are available. I think people forget that. People are booked up in advance, 18 months, 2 years, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much of that as well that we're learning about what can we get our hands on, what can't we get our hands on, what's expensive, what's not expensive, which is great. That's part of the learning process of getting in here and really having control of it. And we hope that fans see when they get there, like, this is what they wanted Damnation to feel like in somebody else's venue. Because the good thing about the arena is it's ours. There's no like 17 French students wandering about in the middle of the corridors trying to find their radio equipment and up next to your headline band's dressing room, or some bar you're not allowed to go into, or a canteen for students happening. But none of that's there. Like, the venue's ours, and we'll have time to try and make it ours. Now, I hope we do as well as we can for this year, but next year there'll be even more of a Damnation stamping in. We'll just build on it as the years go on and improving the things that work and remove the things that don't.
Yeah. Well, earlier this year, we spoke to Alex of Dominion and Wayne of Manifest, and we asked them both the same question. So I'm going to ask you it as well. Is the heavy metal festival market oversaturated in the UK? And how do all these events that are springing up affect your own ticket sales?
It's a good question. I don't know. This isn't a popular answer when it comes to people, right? Because everybody just wants to blame every time that an event doesn't sell well on the fact that everybody's skint, right? Which I get, right? Not everybody's getting endless bit of money. But when 9 Inch Nails decide that they're putting on 4 shows in the UK at £100 a ticket, they sell it that day. Now, it's the same fan base, isn't it? Tool sold it today, Rage Against the Machine show. So the money's there when fans need it to be there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whereas I think with the events like ours and let's say Dominion and Manor Festival, people either feel like they'll just get it because it won't sell out this week, or there's less of a demand for it, whatever reason. And I've said this publicly before, I'm like, if everybody just has no money, if we can't afford tier houses and we can't afford dinner, then where do we find £100 plus booking fee just to see Trent Reznor? You know what I mean? It's like, some people clearly do have money because they've chosen to go and sell out all those Tool tickets, some of them up to £200 a pop to sit in a golden circle. Like, you probably go to Dominion, Damnation and Manifest for that same £200. Now, a lot of that, I mean, ultimately, if you're Dominion and Manifest and you come out and you put the best lineup that the UK's got that year, you're gonna sell the tickets. I mean, it's just, I'm just not buying any other reasoning behind that. I mean, Outbreak Festival sold 6,000 tickets in the same year everything else was collapsing. You know what I mean? Outbreak Festival is about hardcore fans from a richer family. I doubt it. So it's ultimately, if you've got Turnstile and Every Time I Die and whoever else did in that fucking lineup, which was incredible, fans will find the money. if they need to find it. And they fans, and they've got a younger fan base in the likes of all those three festivals, others, Dominion, who probably have less disposable income, and they found a way of getting it. Art Tangent was packed. Art Tangent was sold out. I don't think I was at download, but that was busy as well. I saw a picture of the download was busy. Leeds and Reading sold it instantly again. From a student festival, those people don't have bags of cash. So, is there an oversaturation? Maybe them trying to. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe. I honestly feel as long as your event ticks all the boxes that a fan wants for whatever the price is, £30, £50 or £100, and you're giving them something that special, they'll find the money to get there if they need to.
Definitely. And off the back of Manifest, you picked up Eternal Champion and put that show on in Glasgow last minute. And we were mad enough to drive 7 hours for it. After the fallout happened, let the fans know, how did you end up doing Eternal Champion? Because a lot of people have asked me that. Like, how did Gav end up just putting them on? What happened after Manifest was cancelled? Yeah.
So I work with the same agent that does Eternal Champion, and I think I just got heads up that it wasn't happening, and which is okay, fair enough. That obviously happened to a lot, especially the last couple of years. But those guys were in a different position because they were flying into the UK with nothing. They never had hotels, they never had a place to sleep when they arrived. So they basically were flying into the UK with no shows. And the guys are a bit like they'll take whatever can get them food, water, and a bed for the night. I ended up. I still paid a decent fee for them to come up and play, and it was a good show in that. But I'd hoped, it's one of those ones I don't know a great deal about that music, traditional metal. It didn't sound too much like power metal. I mean, it was more like that trad metal, Iron Maiden type of. But it was good fun. The guys were great. They really appreciated the fact they'd done it. Show lost a little bit of money, but at the same time, you hope, well, these bands and agents and managers remember the promoters that were there to make sure these guys never sat for 4 days at the airport in London and try to fly back.
48 hours notice, you sold 80% of audio, so that's impressive.
I mean, it was. I'd hoped at the very start. I mean, I don't want to sound like no one came, because obviously it was a good crowd and it was a right good night, and we get very, very drunk. But I thought, just for the sort of hype that was going into it, and it's one of those bands that everybody who were into them were really excited and would honestly have probably went and spent £40 a ticket. But they're like one of those bands that I think like an Autopsy or a Dark Angel, where you get a very small number of people who are very, very excited, and they will definitely buy tickets for your show and come. But when you actually, it transpires and you see it at the venue, it's not that many. I mean, so everybody got Autopsy. You can't see it's the same few dozen people that are shouting about Autopsy, and then you go to the gig and it's not the 2,000 fans you've got there. Either get along their show for, I don't know, 20 for the price, and then they sell you 2,000 tickets. You know what I mean? It's like, but I enjoyed it. And I liked being able to have the experience and the connections, including the Glasgow, being able to go and get a venue at a few years' notice to be able to do that. And I had a fun night. And when I say I lost money for it, probably £200 at most. So it wasn't like I was going to have to remortgage a house. But I thought, I didn't go into it to lose money. I thought, like I said, I might make a couple hundred, but that is promoting for you. Definitely.
And I mean, how was your head the morning after anyway?
Fucking destroyed, man. I was in such a bad place.
Same. At least you didn't fight a vending machine over some mini cheddars at 2 a.m. on Princes Street. Yeah, that was
me. I definitely lost if I did.
I did too, yeah. But it was a good night, and I thought it was really good turnout. You know, there's got a lot of good people there, enjoyed themselves. It's important.
Yes, it did. Listen, I'm not trying to, but I don't know if I'm sounding miserable. But again, it's maybe just the honesty. When I'm getting into as a promoter and I book that show and I pay what I paid, you know, but like audio needed to be full. I mean, it needed to be like no tickets left. That's probably where I was aiming for. Where, as you say, it was, as you say, it's like 80% full. It was fine. It was a good night. Pleasure to help the guys out. But good definitely. Band. I don't know if they're a Damnation band, but I had fun.
So we talked earlier that you're giving up the day job. Will you be expanding that? Will there be more gigs going on in Scotland you'll be involved in?
I don't. There's no way that I'm going to be content just doing Damnation. There's no way. At the minute, I'm fighting myself not to start planning more right now. To just want to get Damnation done and get it done right. And really, I don't and shouldn't have headspace for anything else. But I'm pretty certain I'm going to do something in Leeds and Stylus in the Pyramid, the two small stages. Not another Death Fest, but another event of that ilk that I feel Damnation's brand or even Damnation's support will help push it to the numbers that it probably needs to do. Because you get something like that, two amazing venues, keep the tickets reasonably cheap and do 1,000 tickets and have it at the start of the year, sort of that May, April type of thing. I feel there's still space there. I remember I talked about your earlier chat about the oversaturation. No, I take it the answer is no. I don't think that if I'm already be planning something else. But as I say, I'm trying to. I don't even want to talk to Paul about that. Like I'll have a couple of drinks, I'll mention it. I'm like, I don't even want to talk to Paul because I'm like just nothing that I do right now is going to affect that happening or not happening. So let's just get Damnation away. But there you go. I have got this huge arena move happening less than 5 weeks' time, and I'm also, as a part of my brain that won't switch off, thinking about an event too to organise. So no, it won't just be that. I will expand our stuff. Shows in Glasgow are a difficult one. I've done that, and I mean, the Eternal Champion aside, it's not an easy market. And the reason for that is because there's a lot of good promoters up here. A lot of good promoters up here that are all fighting over all those shows, and agents know that. So you need to pay kind of top dollar to get your hands in the show. And when you're paying top dollar, there's obviously the bigger risk of losing money for shows. And well, they're not as exciting as running Damnation either. There's a lot of control that you hand over when it's a band's own touring package, i.e. you've got no say over tour support or a lot of things. Just a lot of things. You're just a date and a poster. It's not an event like Damnation, just a date and a poster. And as I've mentioned,
then it's not as personal as Damnation to you then.
It's personal, and also there's a bit as well. Like I don't like I've mentioned that a few times when both get to this side of the conversation. I don't like the 80-20 split that you get. That you're ultimately always taking all the risk, and when it sells out, the most you'll ever get is that 20%, and they'll take the 80, and that would be fine if the shows you're always booking always made that, are always successful. But it turns out you book 10 shows and you lose money in 5 of them, and you break even in 3, and you make money in 2, and that money you make in 2 doesn't really come up for the rest of them. You know what I mean? So that's annoying. I like to with Damnation. It's you've made your gamble. The band's been paid. There's nothing at the other side. Like they know exactly where they stand. You know exactly where you stand. And if the tickets sell, great, you win. If the tickets don't sell, well, that's just tough luck. You lose. The band always get. But this idea that Damnation does really, really well, and the band just take more money. And I'm sitting at the other side, always with the risk. I understand that's the way that promoters in the UK are willing to work, or across the world are willing to work, but I'm not as excited about that as I am with putting on events where I know exactly we'll be there if we smash it in the park.
Just talking back again, not to go over ministry again, she explained it really well, but when these things happen, have you got a contingency plan already in your head thinking, right, if X pulls out, I think Y would suit, or is it just you're just trying to fix it as it comes in?
Yeah, I think you just try to fix it as it comes in, because if you try to do the contingency, this is what will happen next, replace Y, you drive yourself crazy. And also, there's so many moving parts in this industry, and availability and tour plans and forward planning, that your X replaces Y would only be realistic in such a small fraction of eventualities anyway. You know what I mean? So I mean, in my head, did I know that the possibility of Godflesh doing Street Cleaner when Ministry would do it? Yes, I probably did, but it was never written down on a piece of paper. You know what I mean? And we did do other things as well as. It wasn't a first, second, and third choice, because we weren't at that stage. It was more panic. Like, these are all the choices, and we're going to do the Machine Gun Effect and ask Botch and ask Sodom and ask for Street Cleaner, as well as the same time as asking for Jane Doe and asking for Prowler in the Yard. And well, I mean, no one was as surprised as we were when we got all 3 of those sets. So to answer your question, there's not a set in stone, but I suppose somewhere subconsciously, like, it wasn't the first time we'd ever thought about trying to get Jane Doe or Prowler in the Yard, or even knowing that the Street Cleaner album set might be a realistic option, but we still went for very unrealistic options like Botch, which would have been a real surprise to everybody. But aye, so yeah, I suppose a wee bit of experience, and the fact we just done it. I mean, we just done it with 2021. We like lost an entire American lineup and replaced it with all British. So it wasn't like we hadn't done that dance before.
Yeah. And I know it's terrible that we lost the benefit of, we lost the American lineup. With the benefit of hindsight, though, yourself and Bloodstocks, I think it was really good to showcase British talent. Both years by both of you. There was a lot of bands that people wouldn't have discovered before.
And I'm really quite excited about it. When I'm talking about this event for Leeds, I want it to be a British focused event. I don't want it just to be a mini Damnation. I want it to be something that has the flavour, if not entirely, of British bands. And for that reason, because it was amazing. It was incredible. There was great bands at Download. There was great bands at Bloodstock. There was great bands at Damnation. Again, 99.9% of all those bands were British. Maybe if they get a few more opportunities, a bit more exposure on platforms like that, then we can keep pushing them up. Rather than that helps us as well, because then they're there for when shit does hit the fan, like it did a couple of weeks ago with Ministry. So, aye, and I'm excited about it because I enjoy a lot of those, but some of those bands are really quite incredible, and I feel like there's a bit more hunger to see them now. I mean, even like our pre-show in Mastiff, People Slice on Africa, there's a lot of excitement about those three bands. I mean, it's great, and I mean, a couple of years ago, people might not have heard any of them, and whereas now, you're a bit like, that's people going to show up early enough in that night to catch those bands, and that's a great example of sort of the future of British heavy music.
Definitely. You mentioned as well that after Damnation, you're going to start the Damnation Verses potentially again. You're going to have some podcasts coming out. Are you considering your guests for the next series? Have you got a bucket list you want to work through, or is it just, again, you're just going to go with it?
I'm probably just going to go with it. I mean, I probably should be a bit more forward planning with it. But something that's a bit against my nature, especially with something fun like a podcast. I don't feel like, I mean, it's never going to make me any money or anything. So it's not like I need to sit here and like, let's map out a year of it because this is what I get to this to make sure I've got enough clicks to pay for bread. So I'd probably prefer it in an excitement sense, and just I'm not having like, I mean, some people, I mean, fair play to these guys that do it, but I've been in podcasts and they'll say, oh, that episode will be I mean, I done one with Metal Cell in Ireland. I mean, about like a day or two after we booked the special sets, and I'm about like, the journalist in me would have wanted that out that night. I'd have wanted that. Like, that was the first time I spoke to anybody about it. Now, if you're going to get the traffic for it, let's go get the traffic for it now. Let's get the most exposure you can get. Right, and yeah. I think that's it's coming at like the end of this week or something. You know what I mean? We were doing. Well, I done that one with Paul last week. We done it at 5 o'clock and we put it at 9 o'clock. It's like that's more. Know that every one, poor Brian, I'm not going to put him through that rigmarole every time, but that's more of what I'm about. Like, if I get a guy, if I get Dave Hunt on the Wednesday, we'll put it out on the Thursday, and rather than getting Dave Hunt and be sitting there and going, oh, well, you know what, in 2 months' time, you're a bit like, well, 2 months' time, the kind of things we'll talk about might not be as relevant as will be right this very second, or the questions that I'm asking you might not be so relevant. So I'll probably as for a bucket list, I mean, I'd love to get somebody for Download. I'd love to get a proper chat with somebody. I've got lots of questions I'd like to ask about Download, and how it's put together behind the scenes, and what sort of restrictions they've got, and the bookings they made and the bookings they can't make, and the sort of that whole exclusivity that they'll have against the AEG, the other big company that put on the other major festivals in the UK. So there's plenty there, but like, what have they got to gain for that? Which I suppose is their, I mean, like to come on and have somebody like me pick into the bones of the business, and I'm like, well, what do they gain for that? Like a few thousand listeners on Damnation Versus, I'm like, that's not going to help us a great deal. So I can see why some people are like, it's just not worth their time, but there's usually guests come to me that week. Like, I'll be thinking of something, and I go, I should speak to Brady for Conjurer, by the way. He's actually quite an interesting guy. I should speak. And that's how it tends to be, rather than me sitting there with, here's some special guest, because I don't want to talk to Rob Flynn. I mean, nobody, I don't think, I mean, the guy might be the funniest guest ever. He might have hundreds of great stories, but it's not really relevant to Damnation. I mean, he's like, Machine Head have not played Damnation. I don't have any stories to share with him. It's like, there needs to be a link to some sort of, at least a loose link, if they haven't played to Damnation and they're at least going to play, or they'll get some sort of link to our fan base for that to work. So I do enjoy doing them.
Mm-hmm.
They get quite time consuming, which which you explained there. I never really had the spare time to say, like, let's prep questions for 40 minutes, let's do a 2-hour chat, let's get it loaded up across to Brian and Oriel, get it back, and then spend the time with it. Which I hated the most was actually promoting it. I hated that sort of, I'm going to go and please listen to me speak to someone. So that got a wee bit time consuming, which I'm assuming after this year's Damnation I'm going to have a bit more free time in my hands and I'll get back in it, because I didn't actually enjoy them, and I got a lot out of them. In fact, the venue move happened because of Damnation versus, you know what I mean? So there's no downside to them. I mean, I've definitely gained a lot more for doing those podcasts than I would otherwise.
Yeah, and you're touching on it there, and I think people don't realise the time consuming. Like your PR, I'm presuming you're doing all your own PR this year, and that is time consuming on its own, isn't it? You know, making sure that, you know, people that are coming should be coming, you're getting the right press, and it is that time all the time, isn't it?
It's weird because, like, I do next to nothing for production. One of the most important aspects of it, like literally putting in stages and lights and the scrims and the speakers, because I don't know anything about it. So I have no, like, I don't like the portals and the fencing and securities and bar staff and a million other stuff where I don't have a single day's experience. So there's just no point even trying to say, oh, I'll head up the crew. You know what I mean? But the PR thing is like, I feel like I've done 20 years. It was not PR, but it's a better version of PR. It's a talented version of PR. So I'm a bit like, I probably should have someone, because I feel that PR takes a certain type of personality as well. I mean, you probably need to be. Remember when we were at Bloodstock and you were going and tapping everybody on the shoulder, saying, "Here, speak to Gavin, or else I'm going to put you in a headlock." Right? PR needs that.
I did not say that to anybody. I'm just pointing that out. I called some favours in for you, Gav, and I had to pay them back the next day in interviews.
So I think PR takes that type of personnel as well. They're bullshit, which not that I'm no bullshit, but I've came for the other side of that, where I'm used to being the guy that you phone up to ask them rather than being the guy about. And I think it's even more desperate when you are the subject of the interview. You know what I mean? You're a bit like, oh, hi, I'm Gavin, would you please speak to me? Like, absolutely not under no circumstances. It's a wee bit like getting knocked back at the dancing again, and I'm over those years. So you probably could, but it's time consuming. But I write everything that goes out on Damnation. So I think probably what I just need is somebody to come in and handle the PR, and I can still handle the press as such. But it's time consuming. It's funny because, as I say, there's so many aspects of Damnation I wouldn't consider trying, but that's just one that's kind of sat with me since day one. Yeah,
you naturally gravitate towards your skill set, don't you? I think everybody.
So I suppose I certainly don't know anything about actually playing music or how it's put together or come studio speakers. So I leave that to the professionals, thankfully.
Definitely. So I know Damnation hasn't happened yet, but looking forward to 2023, are you going to follow lots of the festivals and do like this announcement straight off the back of Damnation this year, or are you keeping it under your hat? Come on, tell me. I can see your face there.
No, it's not that, because I get that. I get that whole thing. We've done it. Remember last year we had the whole the Ministry Converge stuff lined up, ready to go, because it all just got a bit weird, didn't it? We had this whole American lineup, and then we knew Summit was coming back, and then we had to cancel all, and we had to put in a UK lineup. So we knew that lineup was already there, like some Pig Destroyers and your Wolves in the Throne Rooms. So we kind of had that ready to go. But here's the reason why I'm terrified of the big one hit Hellfest one. Because see, if you don't sell the vast majority of your tickets after they're done, there's your promo for the year is spent. And I have seen festivals that have done that, not sold what they need, and then what you get is like every few weeks they put out a band picture and says, remember Vector are playing fucking this festival in Midlands, and like, I know, but that's because you've got nothing new to say. You've got no band announcements to put out. So all you've got is a rehash of the same bands with the same promo pictures and the same lineup, which people switch off, and then they kind of forget that your event's happening. So you either need to be as brilliant as Hellfest and know for a fact you're going to knock out the partner who's going to buy your tickets, or you need to be coy with that stuff. You need to be like, right, let's make sure we've got, I mean, that's what Bloodstock do. That's what Download do. I mean, they make sure they've got, I mean, they could do that There's no doubt in the world that an event like Download could give you 90% of the bands on the first hit. I mean, but they come out with the headliners and patches of their stages, and then a few months later, I think Bloodstock do the same, because you're a bit like, what else have you got to say? I mean, the only way that you want to spend all that promo power is if you know for a fact you're going to sell all those tickets. So this year's, that question's a bit non-applicable because we don't have a 2023 lineup. The conversations are happening at the minute. There's some things look likely, some things will take a bit of discussion, but there is no sitting in the background ministry and converge just to say boom, and else we would probably go with some sort of version that we did the last year. You've got a captive audience, the best part of 6,000 people. You've got screens there. We would definitely put something up and say it might still be able to put up a smaller version of that, couple of bands, because you try to catch people as they're there at your event. But going into 2023, that would definitely be the plan for 2024 to have something, because it's too good an opportunity to miss. I mean, if you ask for that same amount of eyeballs going through Facebook, you need to give Mark Zuckerberg like $4,000. You know what I mean? So he's well using it, but this year's everything about this year is just making this year work. After that, we'll put all the bits in place for next year and how we can improve that going forward.
Brilliant. And my last question, and it's a hot one that everybody wants to know: are we going to have pasties in Manchester?
Yeah, all right. So
everyone's going on about it. Yeah,
these pasties. Yes, it's going to be dancing, because I swear to God, if I need to go and buy them myself and drive them to the venue, there'll be pasties there. But I spoke to I laughed about this with my wife last night. So I was speaking to the guys at BEC Arena, who obviously are involved with a lot of promotion things, and we're on it all the time. But that's about the platforms for accessibility, for the Star Wars bar, for how can we get here. I mean, the guys got a sore head listening to stuff. Then his view, he'd be like, we can just deal with that. We'll just deal with that stuff. But I keep going back to him about these pasties and the food vendors, and I say to them, I says, look, you need to let us know about all these food vendors, because why on earth would you need to know that information? I mean, there'll be like 14 or 15 food vendors with everything from vegan through to slop, the burgers and chips, and everything in between, salt and chili rack, whatever, kebab bit, whatever. Like, just tell people everything's covered. And I'm like, but we're closer to our fans, but I mean, like, we're like that. Like, here's like, he said, all you're going to do, and I promise this, is just have people moaning about you, it's not there. And he's like, it's the truest thing he's ever said, because that's exactly what does happen. The more information that goes out, and I was laughing at this with my wife, it's like, you're right, the more you give, the more the opportunities. Like, you try to be the greenest festival in the world, you're going to have the green team come in and tell you why it's a shambles and you're not actually recycling, or there's too much water to do. If you go in and you say, look, we're the Antifa festival, every single black metal band you've got is going to be picked through to when they were in nappies, and you're going to get held up against that. See, if you don't try to be that, if you're like, well, we'll know your moral compass, we'll know, like, everybody's got a right to decide whatever they like, right? People tend to be a bit this like, okay, then they're not trying to be them. What do the kids call it? Virtual side of them. They're not trying to be that event. So just let it slide. But it's funny that even right down to the food vendors, we're a bit like, we need to tell people what the food vendors are. I think guys have been doing this for much longer. I was going, don't bother, because, you know what I mean, it's just, no one's going to applaud you for it. Everybody's just going to come and say, oh, well, my favourite thing's actually croissants with no butter or something like that. And you're like, well, we don't have that, Van, I'm sorry to tell you. So, but the pasties, we tracked something down. The chap from the forum, that Elliot Brown guy, he was at Manchester's pasty place. Paul chased them up. They seemed keen to come. They might even be chatting them doing specialist pasties. Might try and get them with a Damnation one filled with some fucking.
Because we all miss the Damnation burger, don't they? Everybody misses
the Damnation burger. But it's nice as well. And like, there's a venue in Glasgow called the Barrowlands, and I don't drink diesel anywhere. Diesel's a half pint of cider, half pint of beer, topped up with black currant. If they also do that from your childhood, and I don't drink that anyway. I don't even like beer. But every time I walk into the Barrowlands, every time I drink diesel, just because it's what we've always done to every gig we've ever went to. And it's a wee bit of the character of the venue, and it's a bit of the experience. Yeah, Damnation had a wee bit of that with a Damnation burger. I mean, people that probably otherwise wouldn't go out for burgers or would went for a chicken and instead got Damnation burgers. It'd be good to recreate things like that, especially we're going to have a Damnation IPA there next year, or this year, hoping to get a Damnation Sours. If this goes well, maybe have a Damnation Cider. So it'd be good to go and see. I know, that's when I'll get messy for us. So that's and it's, again, that's a wee bit more of an experience in it, and going to something is or you do something a little bit different here than you would normally just go and have your pint of Carlin or your Jack Daniels and Coke or whatever it is. So the pasty van has definitely become a wee bit of tradition for Damnation, and we will have, I mean, ideally we'd have two there, because I think that'll be a really popular option.
Yeah, definitely. Fans have been living on them for years, haven't they? So it's got to be done, and that's good to hear. I'm sure it'll please a lot of people.
You saved the big hat of fly. You were softballing me with the questions right to the end.
Right till the end, yeah. Well, Gav, as ever, it's been a pleasure to chat to you, and we'll see you in a few weeks. Thanks for talking to the Razor's Edge tonight.
Thanks, as always, to Razor's Edge for their amazing support.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you keep up to date with future episodes by subscribing to our channels. For more information on this podcast, or for all the latest music news, reviews, interviews and more, head over to our website www.therazorsedge.rocks.